Right then, adaptations of living organisms. This is one of those areas that students tend to think is really easy, and that they could quite easily talk about, how a camel is adapted to living in hot conditions and how polar bears are adapted to live in cold conditions. But they just don't answer questions properly or with enough detail. So my big warning here is please be very careful to make sure if the question says how is an organism adapted, that you can actually state how, not just give a little sort of flimsy answer. So I just want to talk about that for a few minutes. So all living organisms are adapted to live in their habitats, like I said, whether it's a really hot conditions like a desert, or whether it's freezing cold like in the Arctic. Better adaptations mean an organism can compete better for resources, and I think that's fairly straightforward. Plants compete for water, nutrients and sunlight, where animals compete for water, territory, mates and food. Like I said, there's two main sort of habitats that we're looking at here. Right, now if you are looking at a camel and you are asked to describe 3 adaptations, there is a whole list that you could use. Okay, first of all, please don't say that hump is full of water, because it's not. Okay, it is a hump full of fat, and this is stored in one place, which reduces all round insulation. So the fat can be broken down to release water, which is valuable obviously where water's scarce. Another adaptation is the nostrils, which close, which prevents breathing in of sand. Bushy eyelashes, don't just say they've got eyelashes, because that doesn't help. You have to actually quantify it. Bushy eyelashes, which stop the sand from entering the eyes. A body tolerance to temperature changes, so the camel does not need to sweat so much when it's hot, and obviously this is really useful because some of the temperatures can get up into the 40s where camels survive. Long legs, which lift the body off the hot sand. So they are some adaptations you could talk about. Now you may have heard of cactus. A cactus is a plant that can live in hot conditions. They are actually called xerophytes, Zerophytes, xerophytes. I'm just letting you know that in case it comes up. But really, the thing about plants is that their leaves are spines. So this means that it helps them to reduce their surface area so that they don't lose water. They have rounded shapes, which reduces surface area to volume ratio. The spines are less likely to be eaten by animals because they're too prickly. The thick wax cuticle on the outside reduces the water loss. They have a shallow root system to cover great areas so they can absorb more water when it rains. Their stems are usually swollen to store water, and some have grooves so they can expand. And also, obviously, they are green for photosynthesis. Elephants. If you are asked to describe adaptations of African elephants, for instance, they have large feet so that they can spread the load and stop the camel sinking into the sand. They have thin fur. Less warm air is trapped, reducing insulation. Large ears, so that they lose heat by radiation and they use them to fan the body. Large body size to knock over plants and shrubs for food. Wrinkled skin to increase the surface area from which to lose heat. Their trunk allows the elephant to suck up water to drink and to spray water over the body to cool itself down. Now, these adaptations mean that elephants, for instance, are known as specialists. They can survive in these conditions because they are well adapted to fit their job. Okay, so I've just talked about surface area. More of an organism's volume exposed to the air equals more heat lost, and this is called the surface area to volume ratio. Okay, behaviours, that's another one, where animals have particular behaviours that are going to help them to survive. For instance, some will carry out something called migration, and this is where we're usually talking about birds, where they go to countries that have far more favourable conditions. For instance, Canada geese migrate south for a milder winter. Some animals carry out hibernation when they basically, as soon as the temperature starts to fall too low, their body goes into something called a dormant stage until the conditions improve, and then they can wake up. This is part of the problem of why pandas, the numbers have gone down, because pandas tend to hibernate and then just not wake up. Sunbasking. Some cold-blooded animals like crocodiles lie in the morning sun to warm their bodies after the cold night. This allows them to become active. In hot weather they cool off in the water. You also see butterflies sitting on leaves with their wings open so they can gather the heat from the sun, so that they can get enough energy to then fly off to the next leaf. Water storage. Some animals like camels can drink and store huge quantities of water when they find it, so again it's a behaviour that helps them to survive. I've just talked about generalists, and I've used the example of an elephant because it can survive in different conditions. Now, if we look at cold habitats, and we had to talk about some adaptations here, for instance, of polar bears. Polar bears have very small ears to reduce the surface area of the ear, and so less heat is transferred to the environment. They have thick white fur. How does this aid survival? It insulates the body against the cold and camouflages the bear. Sharp teeth to kill the prey. Strong, long legs, which contain large muscles that contract so the bear can run on land or swim in water. And they have big feet with fur on the soles to spread the load of the animal on the snow or ice, and it helps the grip and helps insulate against the snow. Okay, so really this diagram here is just showing you if you've got, for instance, this is inside the organism, and you can see how the heat is being transferred, and how by the it's called a countercurrent system, by the vessels working against each other. Where they lose the cold, the heat coming the other way can transfer across and can warm the blood back up, so that when it goes back into the body it's warmed up sufficiently so that animals don't have heart attacks. Okay, and then obviously hunting is another behaviour that organisms carry out in order to survive. And with this you need to think, in order to hunt, you usually find that there are characteristics. For instance, with prey, they tend to go around in groups. They tend to have the eyes on the side of the head, so that they've got good all-round vision, and they are camouflaged, usually quite fast as well. Whereas when you've got predators, they tend to have something called binocular vision to judge the size and distance when hunting. Their strength and speed is usually pretty strong, camouflaged, good sense to detect the prey, such as hearing and smell, large teeth and claws to hold and kill prey, hunt either in a pack or alone using stealth, that's normally when they're like sort of creeping along that you see them, and have small numbers of young so they don't have to do as much in way of protection.